Hi there, this is Chapter 4 of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance commentary. So my apologies, I left out the end of Chapter 3 in my last Sunday reading video, and this is an important omission, so I'm just going to share the whole passage. This is at the very end of the chapter. There, out the window in the dark, this cold wind crossing the road into the trees, the leaves shimmering flecks of moonlight. There's no question about it. Phaedrus saw all of this. What he was doing here, I have no idea. Why he came this way, I will probably never know. But he has been here, steered us onto this strange road, has been with us all along. There is no escape. I wish I could say that I don't know why he's here, but I'm afraid I now must confess that I do. The ideas, the things that I was saying about science and ghosts, and even that idea this afternoon about caring and technology, they are not my own. I haven't really had a new idea in years. They are stolen from him, and he has been watching. And that is why he is here. With that confession, I hope he will now allow me some sleep. Poor Chris. Do you know any ghost stories, he asked. I could have told him one, but even the thought of that is frightening. I really must go to sleep. So these amazing ideas of a truly original thinker are coming through the conduit of a narrator, so it seems. Chapter 4. So this chapter is mostly a narrative slice of the actual trip. There is no Chautauqua, nor is there anything particularly philosophically notable. Rather, it gives a flavor of the participants, develops their personalities, and demonstrates their relationships. While everyone's asleep, the narrator shares his list of items he brings on long motorcycle trips. I have a few observations about this, and one of them are the items themselves. First of all, he brings a pair of pants, an extra pair of pants, and the pants he wears are from the Army surplus store, the Army fatigues. And I don't even know if these exist anymore, but this is where the post-hippie youth of my day got a lot of what we wore. That and thrift stores. And another thing that stands out are plate glass goggles. Really? Plate glass? Ugh, but I know that's how it was. There are a couple of items I have no idea what they are. A cold chisel. Aren't all chisels cold? A taper punch, and a chemical I've never heard of. He says the lubricating superiority of molybdenum disulfide is well known. Maybe it was at the time. Also, no shoelaces and no duct tape. What this list makes me think of, and again I'm using my age to give context, is that when I was young, what you brought with you on trips was a big deal. If you were going out of town and you forgot something, it could really suck. If you had a particular thing you needed, like some kind of, let's just say, over-the-counter medication, you might find yourself a long drive from a place to get it. And nowadays, there's a CVS everywhere. And that kind of makes me sad, because in a way it seems like getting away from it all, which is what John and Sylvia are doing on this trip, seems impossible anymore. Now people freak out when they don't get phone reception, which of course, that's happening less and less. So he takes 3 books with him. 2 of them have to do with motorcycle maintenance, and one of them is Walden by Thoreau. And this is what he has to say about Walden, which Chris has never heard and which can be read 100 times without exhaustion. I always try to pick a book far over his head and read it as a basis for questions and answers rather than without interruption. I read a sentence or two, wait for him to come up with his usual barrage of questions, answer them, and read another sentence or two. Classics read well this way. They must be written this way. Sometimes we have spent a whole evening reading and talking and discovered we'd only cover 2 or 3 pages. It's a form of reading done a century ago when Chautauquas were popular. Unless you've tried it, you can't imagine how pleasant it is to do this way. Well, maybe that's a call to try that. It does sound very pleasant, and it does sound something that would really bring people together, especially a parent and a child. I also like what he says about his old gloves. I talked yesterday about caring. I care about these moldy old riding gloves. I smile at them flying through the breeze beside me because they have been there for so many years and are so old and so tired and so rotten there's something humorous about them. They have been restitched so many times it is getting impossible to repair them. Yet I take a lot of time and pains to do it anyway because I can't imagine a new pair taking their place. That is impractical, but practicality isn't the whole things with gloves or anything else. And now that's very true. So, if you're talking about a materialistic worldview, that's kind of a perfect example of an emergent property that you would never want to give up, whether it was practical or not. So this is the practical day-to-day caring of the narrator, not the lofty caring as a philosophical caring as a philosophical concept of the other voice that we're starting to hear, who we're not sure who it is. Note the contrast. So this chapter starts at dawn, and he rattles off this list of what he brings with him because he has nothing else to do since everyone's still sleeping. So he gets sick of everyone sleeping, and even though it's dawn, he gets everyone up to start riding in unseasonably cold weather. And once they get to the next town, which is Ellendale, for breakfast, John and Sylvia are really pissed off. And I like the way this is written because this section is exactly how it feels when someone's really pissed off at you when you think you've done something good. So he tries to engage them to no avail, and they don't even speak to him through breakfast, at which point John says, slowly and deliberately, "We are not leaving here until it warms up." He has a sheriff at sundown tone in his voice, which I suppose makes it final. While the narrator is waiting for it to warm up, he makes this observation. It is cold, all right, but not that cold. How do John and Sylvia ever get through Minnesota winters, I wonder? It's kind of a glaring inconsistency here. It's almost too obvious to dwell on. If they can't stand physical discomfort and they can't stand technology, they've got a little compromising to do. They depend on technology and condemn it at the same time. I'm sure they know that, and that just contributes to their dislike of the whole situation. They're not presenting a logical thesis, they're just reporting how it is. But 3 farmers are coming into town now, rounding the corner in that brand new pickup truck. I'll bet with them it's just the other way around. They're going to show off that truck and their tractor and that new washing machine, and they'll have the tools to fix them if they go wrong. And they'll know how to use these tools. They value technology, and they're the ones who need it the least. If all technology stopped tomorrow, these people would know how to make out. It would be rough, but they'd survive. John and Sylvia and Chris and I would be dead in a week. This condemnation of technology is ingratitude. That's what it is. Blind alley, though. If someone's ungrateful, you tell him he's ungrateful. Okay, you've called him a name, but you haven't solved anything. I like this reflection on ingratitude because that is what happens when you don't value the entirety, when you just value your side of things. The people best at technology are also the ones that will survive if there wasn't any. And that is sort of it's kind of a appreciating of the whole package, let's just say, and that makes them the most functional people. The motorcycle party wouldn't, but by then it'd be too late to realize that they should have been grateful. And it reminds me of some of the arrogant attitudes today from people who don't appreciate what's been built for them by the people they condemn. And I also like that he says, if you call someone a name, you haven't solved anything. There is an awful, with the same group of people, and maybe with a lot of us these days, there's a lot of calling names without coming up with any solution. Then there's a great demonstration of personality and rapport, courtesy of Chicken Man. No need to comment on that much. It's just cute. You'll read it, or you've read it. Chris's personality and problems also start to be explored at the end of this chapter. And I do like this description pertaining to Sylvia, which again imparts the feeling of the trip and gives another example of Sylvia's romantic personality. In fact, very typical reaction of a romantic. Where there is a slight rise in the road, the drone of the motor becomes heavier. We top the rise, see a new spread of land before us. The road descends and the drone of the engine falls away again. Prairie, tranquil and detached. Later, when we stop, Sylvia has tears in her eyes from the wind, and she stretches out her arms and says, "It's so beautiful. It's so empty. There is also an excellent observation about how hard it is to get the sense of nature in a photograph. How often when you are enraptured with beauty as you take pictures, when you are feeling all that dynamic quality, and you think you can capture that dynamic quality, but you can't. In the picture, it becomes conceptualized and static. It has no quality. So I hope that makes sense, and I will see you next Sunday for Chapter 5. Maybe what they used before WD-40, he says, the lubricating superiority of moly